there, and welcome to We Can Know Kenobi, the show where we talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi, now streaming on Disney+. I'm your host, Spencer Chandler, here with my co-host, Christian Miller. How's it going?
I cannot get over how good this episode was.
Yeah, me too.
Can know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I do know. This last episode, we were kind of like, our last recording, we were like, yeah, I really can't wait for the next episode. And I remember off air, you were kind of like, I can wait a little bit just because, we're going to wait. We're going to have to wait a few days. And then now I'm just like, man, I can't wait for the next one now. Like now I'm like, no, we have to wait a full week. I don't, because now I'm just like so hyped for the next episode. Oh, this was a good week.
Mm-hmm.
Before we hop into that,
when I finished the episode, I was just like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
And like, it's the kind of thing like I wasn't thinking about it a whole lot a day after because I was just like, it's like when you like repress a memory. It's just like, that was just too hard. I'm not going to think about that.
Yeah. No, and we were supposed to record this episode the day before it comes out. And I, got busy with stuff, couldn't get pulled away to record. And you were like, yeah, it's okay. I haven't processed the episode yet. It had already been like a day since it came out. And you're like, no, I haven't processed this yet. And I was like, and by that point, when I texted you that, I had already like not watched it because I didn't have time to even watch the episode yet. So I watched it late. And then after watching, I was like, oh no, I now understand what he was saying. Like, this is a lot, but it's so good. Yeah. So before we get into that, has anything Star Wars-y cool happened in your life since last recording? It's only been a couple days, but anything cool happened?
I mean, it is still strange that we haven't gotten to do our celebration recap. The last time we recorded, that was after celebration ended, and the time since then, like, technically there hasn't been celebration. I don't know. Just feels weird.
I've been listening to a lot of celebration podcasts though.
Yeah, me too. I'm working my way through, and I'm on Rebels season 3.
Nice.
I'm not going as fast as I did with Clone Wars. I feel like it's harder to go fast. Based on my watching habits with Clone Wars, I can sort of treat 4-episode or 3-episode arcs as like a one night thing, whereas Rebels is like a lot of standalone ones. So I tend to do like no more than like 2 standalones per day.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a lot of Star Wars other than the regular Star Wars mood. What about you?
So I do have a fun announcement regarding something that was talked about in the last episode. So last episode, I mentioned that I bought a new car. This is a blue BMW, and I needed help naming said BMW. And I thought that I wanted to name it something Star Wars related. And the name has been chosen. I got the car registered today, got a custom license plate with the name on it. So the name is now officially named, or the car is officially named, and it's not one that we brought up last episode. It's actually Numa, named after the young Twi'lek from the Clone Wars, who also then grew up to be part of the Twi'lek resistance in Rebels. So I thought that was a really cool little thing. It's also a short, sweet name, and now it's on my license plate and on my car for good, so we can't go back. Already paid a lot,
Still delivered.
Yeah, exactly. Except for the fact that it's going to take 8 weeks for my license plate to come in. So technically, I won't have it for another like 8 weeks, but the car has been named and it is Numa. And I
give a placeholder at least.
Yeah, no, they gave me like, normally when you go to the DMV and you get like a custom, or like not a custom, but you get a temporary plate. They give you like the paper ones. They're like 30-day plates. No, they gave me like an actual like hard license plate and was like, because it's going to take so long for your other one to come in, just put this one on your car for now. It's like just to show that it's registered. And it has like random numbers, but my registration on my car says that my license plate is Numa. And so like my license plate on the car doesn't match my registration. So I just gotta hope I don't get pulled over in the next 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Which I shouldn't. I've only been pulled over once. So
far already?
Oh, since buying the car? No, like since I've started driving.
Oh.
Yeah. I've only been pulled over once since I started driving. And that's a whole nother story. But anyway, I think we should talk about Kenobi.
Yes. And I have a list of things I forgot to say last week.
I have two things we forgot to say, and it's that there were two very interesting cameos last week that neither of us mentioned. The one very, very obvious one is that the spice dealer on the planet, I can't remember what the planet's called, but the one that Kenobi talks to with the pink hair, that's Ewan McGregor's daughter. No big deal. 3rd generation Star Wars actress. But yeah, so that's Ewan McGregor's daughter. I don't know how we forgot to mention that last week. But also other fun cameo that no one other than us and other podcast aficionados would really understand is that Steele's, I can't remember his last name, but the host of Steel Wars was in episode 1.
Yes. What was the creature he played?
I think he was just himself. I think he was just a human. Because he was in the background of the shot where Owen is being threatened by Reva. He's like standing in the background. But yeah, so that's a cool little like not that he's just a podcaster, but he is, he's pretty high up there in the Star Wars podcasting group, or like, I guess, base. I don't know what it's called. What are we called? But yeah, so now he's
1%. The people who make a living off of it. Yes,
he's one of like the only people that, well, it's easier to make a living off podcasting when you're not doing Star Wars, I guess, but it's so many people doing Star Wars podcasts. But yeah, so he is now in the episode, and that's really cool for the podcasting community, because now it's like, hey, he's in that because he does podcasting, and that's cool. Like, I love that. So those are my things that we somehow forgot to talk about last week. What were yours?
Did we mention C-3PO's cameo?
No, we didn't. I don't know how I forgot that. How did I forget to mention C-3PO's cameo?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, some other things. The crocodile dinosaur bounty hunter. You said there's a lot of weird aliens, but we didn't specifically name that one.
Yes.
He's a favorite for me.
Mm-hmm.
The character named Jaco, the young little street kid,
mm-hmm.
who helps Obi-Wan, who like was friends with Haja. I don't know. He was kind of cool. And then some like more story things. Everything with like Leia's relationship with Lola, and how she talks to her cousin is like, it sets up something we've seen like all the episodes since, of like Leia has this compassion for droids, and this like she just fights for everyone basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels very in sync with like L3 Solo. It's cool to see like continuing more like nuanced portrayals of droids, and we'll get into that later into this episode.
Yes.
And then I almost texted you this, but I wanted to save it. I was like, Bail Organa is a king.
What
like
do you
he's
mean?
literally a king, but he doesn't.
Oh, a king. I thought you said a key. I was like, what does that mean?
He's a king, but no one calls him King Organa.
Yeah.
He's always just like, oh, that's Bail. He's like our friend who helps the rebels. Like, but he's the king of Alderaan. He's a senator, but he's the king. I think he's the king because he's married to Breya, or I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't know how the I'm not really caught up on the monarchy of Alderaan.
And okay, the other thing is that, so yeah, in New Hope, Leia is a hologram, for Obi-Wan, asking for his help, and the call to action is Bail Organa being
as a hologram
and asking Ben Kenobi for help. And then we didn't talk about any of the music stuff. Natalie Holt, who did Loki score, does the score. Did you hear that?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it was very loud.
Except for one song. She does the score other than...
John Williams did the Obi-Wan theme, which I listened to before I ever watched the show because they released it as a single.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, yep, this feels like exactly what the show seems like it's going to be. It's got this very intense... It feels very dramatic and sad, but then there's also these flares of like adventure.
Yeah.
That I think is so characteristic of the show. But then, yes, the whole score is also doing a lot of Star Wars. It is Imperial March. There's some stuff in this episode that I really like, but I didn't have a lot to talk about. So I forgot to mention it because there was a ton of stuff that stood out. And then we never talked about Reva doing parkour.
Oh yeah, it's like straight up parkour.
Pretty cool. A lot of cool flips.
Yes, indeed, lots of cool. I think
it's a nice compromise. Not that it needs to be a compromise, but like it's not doing the whole prequel CGI stuff. Like it's letting the actor do the stuff themselves, but it's not the wire work of Rise of Skywalker with the superhero landing. So. Yeah.
One last thing that I will say before we get into this week's episodes. I may do this. Every once in a while, we like to give podcast recommendations for other cool podcasters. And I know I've already shouted out this podcast once in the last 2 months. But recently, the girls at Sky Talkers got to do roundtable interviews with Moses Ingram and Deborah Chow, Ewan McGregor, and Hayden Christensen. And they are just fantastic interviews. Would highly suggest going and listening to them. Moses was great, and as great as people probably clicked on that episode to listen to Ewan McGregor's interview and for Hayden Christensen's interview, but Moses and Deborah Chow's interviews were so much fun. And the crazy thing is, Moses Ingram was never a Star Wars fan until she got hired to do this show. And the only thing that she's seen is the bits that her character would have seen or would have lived through. That's all she's seen of Star Wars. And so it's perfectly in the mind of her character. It's so cool. I love it. And hearing her talk about what it's like to come into Star Wars brand new is just, it's awesome. Go listen to them. They're fantastic episodes. Yeah.
There's some good podcasts out there. Sky Talkers is one of them. They seem to have had the ultimate Celebration experience.
Yeah.
Which we can get into. We don't have to review their review of Celebration, but we can talk about it if we want in our Celebration recap.
Well, yeah, but because their episode's 2.5 hours long talking about Celebration. So it's
yeah. But yeah, Moses Ingram, I love that there's a lot of fans celebrating her and lifting her up despite the usual campaigns that people do, because people like the fandom menace and trolls that have existed. I mean, these kind of people have existed for a while, but they've rose up around 2017, really ruining Star Wars with bombing reviews or whatever, complaining and masking their criticisms behind it's just logical or whatever sort of excuses. They literally just don't want to see black women in Star Wars. That's stupid. So I think it's just be aware. A lot of fans ruin things for other people by just allowing their biases to impact their critiques, and they ruin the fun because they think that they can gatekeep what Star Wars is about and who it's for. So let's I just want to get that out of the way, be as succinct as possible. Yeah, Rev is great. Moses Ingram was great,
Yes.
and Star Wars is for everyone.
I agree. Yeah. So yeah, go listen to those episodes. They're great, and you get to learn a lot about the people individually and how they approach this project as a whole. And I think it's fantastic. They also talk about the volume a lot versus, which is something that we talk about pretty regularly, the volume versus the benefits of doing that versus shooting on location. And they have good topics on that too. So yeah, let's stop talking about anything that's not this episode, this episode 3 or part 3. And we will, let's talk about it. Christian, you've been doing the synopsis for this series. You did last week. Well, part of the synopsis. So I've been informed that you have done a full synopsis for this episode this week.
Yes, but I did that after watching it twice.
Ah.
Both times on TV. Better quiet environment, because it's the middle of the week. And I did rewatch, like a few hours after the first episode, I did rewatch the lightsaber fight. What about you? How did you watch it?
So I went and visited my girlfriend at the beach for the past couple of days, and Thursday we decided let's watch it together. So we watched it on a laptop screen. I didn't watch it on a phone this time. All right, watched it on a laptop. We're stepping up. Maybe next week I'll watch it on a TV. Maybe.
And if you get really low, maybe it'll have to be a refrigerator screen, but it'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. But no, we watched it, and I forget that she gets really annoyed when she watches Star Wars with me, because even when I'm not with other people, even when I'm not with other people, I will talk to myself. It's a little weird. I don't really know why I do it. I think it's the ADHD, but I cannot be sure. I may just be weird. And so
I don't remember, but when we watched the Mando season 2 finale, I think I talked more than you.
Well, that's because I really thought that it would piss you off, so I tried my hardest not to. I'm gonna be really straight up with you. But no, so I would be sitting there and I would be like, I would hear the music. I would hear like music cues, and I would just like under my breath, but not very much under my breath, be like, oh, this means that we're gonna get like this thing. Oh yeah. And she'd be like, shut up. I'm sorry. And like I would be like, oh, that's like the other movie. And she's like, yes, I know. I've seen them before. I'm like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to myself. And she's like, okay. And so, as much as I absolutely love watching Star Wars with my girlfriend, I don't know if that feeling is super reciprocated.
Okay, good to know. All right. So with that out of the way, I'm going to get into my synopsis. All right. Are you ready, Spence?
I am so prepared. I've heard it's long, but I'm here for it.
Okay. Just after escaping Dayu with Leia, Kenobi meditates on the cargo ship. He feels the truth that Anakin is Vader and wants Qui-Gon's guidance, but he can't reach him. On Mustafar, Vader suits up for a business call with Reva, with whom he is most impressed. He promises her the promotion of Grand Inquisitor if she finds him Kenobi, but death if she fails. Before landing on the mining planet Mapuzo, Leia questions Kenobi about the Force. He explains it as like the safeness of turning on a light in the dark. On Mapuzo, the two make their way across dry fields looking for their contact, who Kenobi believes doesn't exist. Leia, as hopeful as ever, finds a civilian truck driver willing to give them passage to the spaceport of Mapuzo. The driver, who goes by Freck, is friendly but loyal to the Empire. He eventually allows some stormtroopers to hitchhike as well, who grill Kenobi on his cover story. Kenobi attempts to convince them they are farmers from Tal, but accidentally calls Leia by her real name. Just as the troopers seem to be catching on, Kenobi speaks from the heart about Leia's mother and the family's past tragedies, the reality of which easily fits in with his fiction. They avoid these troopers until Freck brings them to an Imperial checkpoint, where more troopers and a probe droid attempt to arrest him. This time, Kenobi fights back by shooting the probe in the amps. He and Leia avoid the soldiers, only to be caught again by an Imperial officer who reveals herself a rebel by shooting her troopers and rescuing Ben and Leia. They make their way to a hideout in the town, which the rebel says is used to rescue Jedi. With the Empire hot on their heels, the three accelerate their escape until Kenobi senses a cold darkness around him. Vader and the Inquisitors have arrived. Kenobi watches as Vader senselessly slaughters civilians, no doubt aware of Kenobi's gaze. Kenobi realizes he must split from Leia and the rebel, distracting Vader in order for them to escape to Alderaan. Kenobi veers Vader out of the town, surrounded only by small hills and darkness everywhere. Vader draws his lightsaber. Kenobi runs. Vader finds him again, and Kenobi asks, "What have you become?" "I am what you made me," Vader replies. As Reva pursues Leia, Leia assures the rebel, who says her name is Tala, that she can find her way on her own. She urges Tala to go help Obi-Wan. Vader attacks Obi-Wan, who struggles to maintain ground and flees to a mining facility. Vader knocks down a barrel of minerals, lights them on fire with his saber, and force pulls Kenobi into the flames, enacting the same suffering on him that he endured 10 years ago. Vader snuffs the fire out and sends for a trooper to retrieve Kenobi. The trooper is shot down by Tala, who reignites the flames and rescues Obi-Wan with the help of Ned B, a cargo droid that didn't have time or space to include in this synopsis. Vader is left with nothing but fire and rage. Reva, on the other hand, has Leia.
Wow. That was good. That was really good. It did. Hey, you're right. It did feel like watching it again. I was picturing it all in my head the whole time. Randomly in my head, what popped into my head, while you were doing the synopsis, is the fact that we also forgot to mention Tamara Morrison last week.
Did we forget to mention the clone?
Yeah, we did not mention that Tamara Morrison plays a 501st soldier who happens to also be on Daiyu. Yeah, we did mention that.
Some of those smaller connections, I think we missed because we went into like in-depth stuff about like Owen and Reva and Padme and stuff like that. Other things that like we felt much more emotionally that like we just like latched onto those, whereas the clone was a bit of it, but we didn't like.
Yeah, and like I didn't even realize how important it was that he was there. I kind of thought it was just like a thrown in thing where it's like, oh hey, there's like a soldier just to show that it's after, and not to spend too much time on it, but the fact that Anakin's whole thing is that he would never abandon anyone from his troops. Anakin never abandoned anyone from the 501st. He would do whatever he could to like save them, but Vader doesn't care. And that's the big thing. Like, that's why he's there. And I didn't realize that until listening to a podcast about it. And they mentioned that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that adds like a whole new aspect to the fact that he's here. Anyway, back to this episode. This episode has a lot of stuff that's just like, and really it's that last scene between Vader and Kenobi that really like hit hard. I mean, there's other stuff, but like I was like, this is crazy. Yeah. Also, we have the Jedi Underground Railroad, basically.
/ like, I don't know, World War II sort of counter, like the resistance to the Nazis sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Giving them new identities and getting them off out of Europe.
Yeah.
What do you want to do first?
I think we can get the small things out of the way first. Cameos or mentions such as Quinlan Voss being mentioned, that he was part of this on the wall. That's like, I was like, that's cool. I like said it out loud, and Katie's like, who is that? And I was like, yellow paint under his eyes. He's in one of the other movies, but he's mainly known for Clone Wars. And she's like, I have no idea who you're talking about. I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah. He started in The Phantom Menace as an extra. He was on Tatooine for who knows why.
Yeah.
And then Revenge of the Sith. After leaving the war room, Kenobi's like, Master Voss, mentions his like time and his like position in the war or whatever. Then we get, and also in between that, there were some like Dark Horse comics, I think.
Yeah.
um, no longer canon. And then he appears in Clone Wars as an actual character. He he's kind of I
He's a
don't know.
hip.
I think the actor is like part indigenous or whatever, so they took that as like doing like a sort of a stereotype of like, oh, he can like hunt people like a wolf or something like that. So like that's his force ability.
Yeah.
One of his force abilities, and he's definitely portrayed as like very much like Anakin
Hmm.
to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan sort of gets partnered up with him for a mission on Nalhutta, and so it's like this
Yeah.
odd couple sort of thing. Quinlan Voss is very reckless, but like doesn't have the same sort of attachment things as Anakin. And then they were planning a Clone Wars arc with him and Ventress, but it got turned into a book when Disney canceled the Clone Wars. Dark Disciples, the book's name. I've not read it, but yeah. And that arc was originally written by Katie Lucas.
Huh.
But yeah, and then there's just I don't know exactly what he's doing during this timeline, but he survived Order 66. Basically, is what I know.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see Quinlan Voss in this show? No. I don't. If we were, they wouldn't mention it like they did.
As far as reunions go, it's not very important on the list, but it is important for Obi-Wan to know that Jedi survived and they are helping.
Yeah.
And they're doing what they can in their own way to resist the Empire. Obviously, it's unwise for Obi-Wan to do that because he would get Vader's attention. But I think he's so caught up in his own perspective that he doesn't realize there's so many people out there doing what they can.
Yeah.
It's like he's just caught up in his own very important mission, but like that doesn't mean other people can't have their own mission.
Yeah.
And just because he has shame about what he did to Anakin doesn't mean he should put that on Nari, another Jedi. Like he feels that, but not everyone should feel that.
Yeah.
So yeah, him meeting rebels, I feel like was very eye-opening for him.
Yeah, because I mean, Obi-Wan's whole thing in the first 2 episodes was like, yeah, we lost, like we screwed up. There's nothing we can do now, and so I think, yeah, you're right. Seeing the people who were in his shoes beforehand, who yes, they lost, but they're not giving up hope. That's good for him to like drive him forward to be like, oh, well, like what does that mean of me if I just like gave up? And these other people are just like, they're fighting still. Like they see. And even Tala is she's a turned Imperial soldier. Like she joined the Empire and then realized, hey, this isn't good. And she like turned away. And was able to escape that and is now helping Jedi. And if the this episode doesn't even say about it, the image of the Jedi has been skewed on depending on where you're at in the galaxy, because we saw in Dayu the name of the Jedi, like the term Jedi, is still being seen as hopeful, because you see people being helped out, they're going to the Jedi for help, whereas here Freck is obviously like, yeah, the Jedi suck, man. Like those people, like hopefully there's none of them around, like because they're just terrible people who don't respect order, and it's like, wow.
I think he's definitely an antagonistic character, but I don't think Freck knows much about Jedi other than that they're powerful.
Yeah.
And that they probably tried to overthrow the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And like sort of the same sort of Owen perspective of like, oh, if one came on my lawn, I would want to attack it, sort of thing.
Freck was, but I loved Freck until he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna betray you guys," and I was like, "Dang it, Freck! Like you're such a cool dude."
I was wondering how it was gonna go, because it was like, Leia tells him that we were walking through the field and we needed a ride to the spaceport, and he's like, "What a weird story," which I think is hilarious. And
yeah,
I was just like, I cannot believe they got Seth Rogen for this part, and then to find out it's Zach Braff.
I was like, yeah. At first, I thought it was Seth Rogen. I was like, "There's no way this is Seth Rogen."
How would you not think it's Seth Rogen though? It sounds exactly like him.
No, I thought it was, but then I was like, "But there's no way that Seth Rogen's in Star Wars." Like,
he was Pumbaa in Lion King. Jon Favreau.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I always forget because I've never seen The Lion King.
I'm just baffled that Zach Braff would do this. It's just funny because like he gets asked to do a voice role for Star Wars, and he's like, "I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna imitate a more popular actor."
Yeah.
Like imagine being able to tell like your parents like, "Hey, I did a voice in Star Wars. Isn't that cool? You like Star Wars? Star Wars is for everyone knows Star Wars." And they call back, "Hey, I heard that Seth Rogen was in the episode, but I didn't hear you." He's got to be kicking himself, right?
Or just like, "Hey, can you give me Seth Rogen's autograph?" Like, imagine if that was their response. They text him back. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you didn't tell me you worked with Seth Rogen." Like, that's crazy.
So you were the stormtrooper, and then Seth Rogen was the interesting creature, the mole man.
Yeah. I also want to mention that I'm fairly certain that a lot of this outdoor like mount stuff was filmed on location. We were kind of talking about the difference between on location and volume in last episode, but it looks like a lot of the beginning and a lot of the end of this episode were filmed on location. It seems like.
I wouldn't put it past them. They filmed in Long Beach. I don't know how much that resembles Long Beach.
Yeah.
But regardless of what they did, I feel like it was sold very well.
It was. Yeah. If they were using the volume for some of those shots, I am impressed. Mm-hmm. Because they look on location for most of this episode. They don't have the volume look that I think people who know a lot about the volume can kind of pick out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Work our way back to the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I want to talk about Leia in the beginning of the episode and how just awesome and quick on her feet she is. We already thought she was awesome in the last episode, and now like Obi-Wan's the one.
I'm going back further. You remember the conversation about the Force?
Yeah. No, you're right. That was a good. I like.
First off, we get it. That's not how it works. Very much like Han and Force Awakens. That's not how the Force works.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Obi-Wan's struggling so much. He's trying to commune with Qui-Gon, and it's like, I'm sure he doesn't fully feel attuned to the Force, but it is still that instinctual, just like, I know this. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, why can't you make this ship go faster? And then he's just like, that's not how it works. Well, then how does it work?
I fully expected him to just give the same speech as he did in A New Hope. Fully expected him to just be like, hey, remember that speech that Alec Guinness gave? Just give it to Ewan McGregor. But I'm honestly really glad they didn't, and I loved this, like, because he's talking to a child.
In A New Hope, the answer is tailored to a teenager who needs to be, in charge of his own destiny. And then Leia is this kid who he's protecting. I feel like they warrant different explanations.
Absolutely.
So yeah, he's like, have you ever been in the dark? And you know what it feels like to turn on the light. Feel safe. That's what it's like. I just love that. I feel like it's feels a lot like Qui-Gon in the Master and Apprentice novel, who, Qui-Gon basically dispels the myth of the Grey Jedi. Qui-Gon says, I don't choose the light because it's the winning side. I choose the light because it is the light. It's not this sort of cosmic war. It's like light is inherently good. So it feels like I like the mixing or the same sort of metaphors being used.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but despite Obi-Wan's grasp on the Force and his understanding of it, he's still very closed off and very his focus is not very luminous or flowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rigid.
Yeah.
So Leia is like, hey, we should ask for help, or like maybe they'll come eventually, and he's just like, nope, we were betrayed. my suspicions were true. I've seen the spot for 5 seconds, and I've concluded that we were betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just he's still acting on fear, which then leads into him seeing this mirage of Anakin, which I think is one of the best shots in a Star Wars show. Uses the very long lens, everything looks flat, and Anakin's just like.
Yeah, and I was like, is that Hayden Christensen? And I like rewound it and looked at it. I was like, okay, yeah, it is. But it was like they had to have like de-aged him a little bit because he looked like Hayden Christensen in Revenge of the Sith. And Hayden Christensen definitely looks a little bit older than he did. So
he was really far away.
That too. But also, I don't know. I ended up pausing it and looking at the shot because I was very intrigued. But yeah, we're also not, when you're talking about not being in tune with the Force, we're not yet at the point of these aren't the droids you're looking for. And Alec Guinness Obi-Wan would have easily, like, if those stormtroopers started questioning them, he would have just been like, nah, fam. Like, you don't worry.
He could have. I was waiting for him to do a mind trick.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's just too. I think he doesn't feel very strong, and he feels just very, very shaken up by everything. So yeah, okay, let's talk about Freck. I love the pickup truck. It's great Star Wars design. It is not flashy. It's not trying to be this inventive, like, oh, what's an alien truck? It's Star Wars design is always great when it looks like it serves a purpose and it looks like it's old.
Yeah.
And where you see bits of real world design, but a little bit of just abstraction. Yeah, that's my little spiel on the pickup truck. But also at the end of the truck is an Imperial flag. It felt very, very real world. It really felt like a thin blue line sort of flag or MAGA hat sort of thing.
Yeah, I saw the logo and I was like, this feels so much more real than like when you're watching the sequel trilogy and you just see the First Order banners everywhere. It's like, yes, we understand that those like the First Order banners, yeah. But this is like some dude took the time
it's homemade.
Yeah, some dude took the time to paint this on a canvas and put it on the back of his pickup truck. Like, it's not just like the organization thinking they're the stuff and putting their logo everywhere. Yeah. And it was just like, I don't know. It just made me feel a little bit different than normally when I see the Imperial logo on stuff. I was like, oh, like he is a true supporter because he went through the effort to make sure that he was supporting.
Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know. I guess in a way, it plays into Obi-Wan's suspicions, just how he might, see a fake Jedi who ends up actually helping him like a Jedi.
Yeah.
He could also see an Imperial who helps him like a person, but is still at the end of the day an Imperial.
Yeah.
And it's less about people's titles and it's more about people's actions. And those actions can change minute to minute.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. What more? Did you have anything more to say about Leia? Oh, okay. I said we're gonna start off with something Vader. I think I said the Inquisitors wasn't fully true. I thought they were coming back and talking to Vader or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But Reva did have the conversation. And then immediately after we get Kenobi, or around that sort of time, Kenobi repairing Lola.
Yeah.
So
you kind of nailed it.
Although he didn't mention Anakin. He didn't like have a hard time repairing it or anything.
No, I do want to talk about the whole like Leia just being super quick on her feet with these stormtroopers. Obi-Wan's the smooth talker. We know between him and Anakin, in the Clone Wars, it was always Obi-Wan was the smooth talker, and Anakin was, the shoot first, ask questions later type guy. And even the Alec Guinness one was the smooth talker who said, "Let me do the talking," and then would kind of deal with stuff. And then now we're kind of he's just tripping up, and then Leia is just this 8-year-old is saving him from being blasted by a bunch of stormtroopers, and it's fantastic. It just adds to that whole like her being able to see people and just like know exactly everything about them based on the way they're acting, which was hilarious in the first 2 episodes. And now she's just like perfectly putting on this facade of like, yeah, my mom died. It hasn't been the same without her. And then Obi-Wan is just like, you can almost see him like just like admiring how good she did. Like he like looks at her and is like, that's crazy. And that's what ends up reminding him of Padme, is because Padme's also, like in Clone Wars, was just fantastic at getting herself out of like bad situations. She was very good at that. And Leia has very much gotten that from her mother, as we see in this scene.
Yeah, Padme was always on top of things.
She was always.
So, yeah, Obi-Wan is like really failing at keeping this cover, which I mean, he was doomed from the start. He's there on this foreign world that's not very popular. They were going to get caught, and he's wearing Jedi robes. But he calls her Leia. Luckily, the stormtrooper doesn't have all the information, so he doesn't know directly that Leia Organa is missing. He's just looking for a Jedi. But Obi-Wan is just like, calls her Leia, and the only way to get out of it is to be honest, but in a vague enough way.
Yeah.
So that his own heartbreak is believable, and then the stormtrooper just like buys it.
Yeah.
It's not the normal way to get out of a stormtrooper situation, right? Normally we're used to, especially in Rebels, you just punch them and then cut to you in their armor.
Even in Resistance, in the last couple episodes, we got just hit them and then wear their armor and you're good.
Or if you're a Jedi, do a mind trick. Or normally they just start shooting at you right away. Normally you're not sharing the bed of a pickup truck with them.
Yeah. This show is also just making me so much like, and this is just like, I can already tell you, this is my favorite. Well, I don't know. This and Mandalorian season 1 are like both like they're really competing for what I think is the best Star Wars show. But right now, if Kenobi keeps this up, I don't think it'll be a competition. But I'm just getting like there are so many points in this episode. I'm just like getting emotional at like stuff that Obi-Wan is saying. And when he's like, yeah, I sometimes just look at her and I just see her mother's face. I'm like, oh no. Like, it's so sad.
Which means, after the stormtroopers are gone, Leia is like, "Are you my dad?"
Yeah, that like kind of like takes the moment, and it's just like, oh, no, it's funny.
It's like, okay, let me set up here. No, I'm not your dad. I wish I was. It's way worse than that. I can't tell you.
I almost want it. Like, I didn't even think about this till after, but when he's like, "I wish I was," it's like, man, I wish I was. Padme was hot. But no,
I did see. I saw an out of context joke about him and Padme, and that totally now it makes sense. That's why someone was saying that.
That's why someone said it. Is because he was like, "I wish I was your dad." But no, it's like no.
Yeah, there were those theories.
Yeah,
people sometimes read their scenes in Revenge of the Sith as something else going on. I think he really admired her just as a person, and then seeing her effect on Anakin and the good that she did for Anakin. I think by extension, because he loved Anakin, he loved her. I don't think it was a romantic thing. I think the only romantic love he had was the romantic love he had was Satine, but also Ventress, but also Maul.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that part of it is, and yeah, I know what people are going to like. I know that some people are like, I forgot
to mention Cody as well.
Yeah. I know some people are like, but Clone Wars hadn't come out yet when Revenge of the Sith came out, so you can't actually say that. But like, part of it is also just because he was jealous of the fact that Anakin and Padme had this thing. And he's like, I wish I was with Satine. That would be epic.
I'm sure he might have a fleeting thought about that, but
Yeah.
he was still committed, unless Satine would have survived and asked him to leave the order, he would have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, maybe to a certain extent, I don't think he ever resented Anakin, but I think Anakin whining about all the things done wrong to him and then how he wants to lash out, Obi-Wan is probably thinking, there are so many things that have happened to me as well, and you don't see me acting in revenge.
Mm-hmm.
My master was killed. The monster who killed my master came after me, and once is hunting me down. He killed my love. All so much has happened to Obi-Wan as well.
And Obi-Wan still let Ahsoka go and get him instead of going himself. He was still okay with that at the end. In season 7, Obi-Wan could have easily been like, no, Ahsoka, this is my fight. And yes, I get it. Also, it hadn't come out before Revenge of the Sith. He couldn't have gone. Whatever. I don't care. He let Ahsoka go. He...
Go where? What are you talking about?
To Mandalore to fight Maul. He was like, Maul has to be fought. Ahsoka, go do that. Like, he wasn't going to be super like selfish about like, well, that he did all this bad stuff to me. I have to be the one to defeat him. He was like, no, Ahsoka, you got this.
I mean, yeah, definitely he wasn't so fueled by that Maul thing. But I don't know. I think what caused a bit of a lull with my love for Obi-Wan was coming back in season 7, and then I'm like, oh wait, Obi-Wan's kind of a jerk in these episodes. To Ahsoka, at least.
Mm.
He's very blunt about her jurisdiction and like, you're not a Jedi and sort of that sort of stuff. And he didn't. Wait, wasn't there a part in when the Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order? Didn't Obi-Wan like reach forward to also go as Anakin did, but then Plo Koon like held his arm or something?
I think so. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that episode.
We'll get back to you next week on that. But
get back to you.
Let's talk about Reva. I was gonna segue into Reva because there was a perfect discussion point to talk about with the Jedi, how the Jedi are perceived.
Yes.
But then you started talking about Star Wars mole Seth Rogen.
My bad.
So, Reva is perfectly paralleling Kenobi's story at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kenobi is faced with, okay, here's what some Jedi are doing right now. They're finding the hope. They're providing for the resistance. But then Reva sees the Jedi symbol, and she is like mad and sad at the same time. Her eyes are tearing up. The camera's pushing in. And you can just tell that she is thinking about Order 66 and all that pain that caused her.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear that she's acting out of. Her fear is born out of that fear for Anakin originally. That fear of, well, I have to become a weapon or else they'll kill me. And like, compare that to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is not his entire makeup is not fear, but he has fallen into fear a lot of times because of he doesn't want to cause more suffering and he doesn't want to do all these things with good intentions and then still ruin a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So the Jedi philosophy being used as something that's sort of spurring Obi-Wan to be okay, to lend himself out and to protect others while it's also stirring up these emotions for Reva is just so really cool. But I don't know, it's a ramble.
Yeah. No, I agree. Her like, and I think that we're definitely gonna explore. I don't know if I can't remember honestly. This is so bad. I can't remember if it was you that said this or if I heard this on another podcast. But someone was like, Reva is the protagonist of this story. And it was like,
I think I said she's like the third second or third protagonist. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard someone say that she is the first protagonist of this story, and I was like, interesting, because like I kind of see it. Like,
I think there's too much with Kenobi for
there
her to be the
is,
first.
yeah, but like, I think she's a lot more important than even those of us who are like accepting her as like one of the main characters. Like, I think there's still a lot more about her that we don't know yet that we're gonna figure out before there's like she's connected to the Jedi in some way. Most of them were pretty much all the Inquisitors were Padawan or Jedi at the time of Order 66. So we're going to find something out. Also, she knows who Anakin Skywalker is. And as the people in the Weekly Planet like to point out, most people who know who Anakin Skywalker is and know that he's Darth Vader don't live to tell other people that. So either she found out and Vader doesn't know that she found out, or she found out and she's very important, so she gets to live.
I think the key thing that makes her in some ways the protagonist is that she can have a full beginning to end character arc where she can change dramatically. Whereas Obi-Wan, we're meant to see him being bridged from one era to the next, and that is a wonderful area to explore, but at the same time it's limited. You can't have him dramatically do anything different. But Reva's a new character, and we needed a new central character that can undergo change. She's not necessarily undergoing change yet, but I feel like nevertheless I feel so connected to her and sympathizing with her because of how she's positioned in relation to the Inquisitors, to Vader. There's this whole workplace comedy sort of thing going on with her and the Inquisitors.
Yeah. Sixth brother is like, it's mine. And he's like, nope, I already talked to Vader. He's very pleased. And I was like, dude, chill out, bro. You don't got to be like this.
I think I'm warming up to the Inquisitors' performance because it's meant to be one note. It's a bit of an adjustment in terms of Rebels. Not that it was like super complex in Rebels, but in Rebels they were meant to be these intimidating forces. But that's Reva in this show. And fifth brother, the other sister with the little things, and the Grand Inquisitor, they're all sort of just her annoying, clueless partners. And it's funny at times. Yeah,
and I'm still really confused about the Grand Inquisitor. Was that actually the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels and he's like fake dead? Or is that like the same species but not the same person?
Here's my take on it. I think part of the price for Reva's actions, what she's going to learn, is that just like Obi-Wan, you can make a sort of decisive action and people can still come back, and violence begets violence. And if you go on the path of the dark side, taking people's lives into your own hands, you're only going to create more destruction.
Yeah.
And so I think a combination of the Inquisitor coming back to try to put an end to her, that with the opportunity for her to save someone's life, which could mirror Vader deciding to save Luke's life. That's sort of like, oh, I can do this or I can do that.
Yeah.
I feel like that could spur some character change for her.
Well, and I was also going to say, like, we're kind of seeing hints of a redemption arc in Reva by the end of the episode, by the end of the season, you know, kind of like the glimpses of that. Maybe she'll like turn away from the Inquisitors and away from Vader and like join Kenobi possibly. And maybe it's the Grand Inquisitor coming back after her that like finally is just like, all right, well, I can't be with them anymore. And that kind of will spur her. And maybe it's the fact that I would love this so much. This would be so great. As much as I want Kenobi to like do the redeeming and like to like do the thing that leads someone to the redemption arc, how dope would it be if like she has Leia, the Grand Inquisitor comes after her, and Leia convinces her to be good? How dope would that be?
I think it's it would. I still don't think we're getting it to the 6th episode,
Oh no,
but
probably not.
Leia is going to read her like a book.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. She's done it to every other person she's been with, so she has to do it with Reva. But what if she's the one who like brings Reva her redemption arc by the end of the episode? That would be awesome. That would be epic. Mm-hmm. Oof, man.
But then, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I'm seeing things that contribute to my theory. I don't know if necessarily we're seeing full scale clues.
Yeah.
I just know that she's not a love to hate them villain.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just like it just so perfectly aligns with she can turn.
Yeah, because every villain in Star Wars that I can remember that's like not a love to hate them villain has had a redemption arc of some sort. Like even Maul kind of like, and granted Maul's is only like 30 seconds long.
Maul purposely does not redeem himself.
Yeah, but I kind of felt bad for him when he died. But
well, bad because he never gave up his quest and he never grew.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But oh my gosh, I love that Leia is a character that none of us even like thought would be in this show, and now she's like slowly becoming everyone's favorite character in the show. Not even slowly, she like very quickly became like people's favorite character in the show, and like no one even expected her to be in it. Everyone was like, yeah, this is gonna be Obi-Wan and Luke, and it's like, psych, this is the Leia show, baby.
Yeah,
I'm here for it too. I love it.
Okay, before we get to Vader, let's talk about Ned B.
And
Tala.
Big K2SO moment here.
I love Ned B's design, and the other one that was at the landing spot. It's just so. I'll find out later if it was derived from a K2SO concept. There's always a chance with a big droid because they did like 100 different designs for K2SO.
Yeah,
but the droids writes themes in the show. Tala says he's not programmed to communicate. And then Leia says, what did Leia say?
They don't remember.
Like she's like Leia didn't care. She just like still wanted to greet him. I need to look at what she says, because then after that Tala says actions speak louder than words, which is one of those rare times when a real world idiom makes its way into Star Wars. In a recent Rebels episode that I watched, Darth Maul says, "If first you don't succeed, try again." It's one of those weird, like, yeah.
Yoda would hate that, man. Yoda would hate that.
It's like, yeah, that's true, but normally you're used to like a language sort of twist with Star Wars.
Yeah. It's kind of what we talk about in our is blank Star Wars series. It's like we almost have the Shakespearean language, and so when we hear a modern day like phrase like in it, we're like, huh. It's like, okay, it's like I heard in a podcast today that like there's a comic issue where Luke has a hot chocolate, and it's like, it's a little weird. It's like chocolate is canonically in Star Wars, but no one ever mentions it other than like that one comic book that Luke, and this is like a Disney comic too. It's like since the Disney purchase, it's not like it's a old Dark Horse comic. Like Luke canonically had a hot chocolate at some point. It's like, that's a little weird. It's just like one of those things where it's like everything has funny names. All the drinks have names except for hot chocolate, and it's just like, oh, that's just a real word thing.
So yeah, Tala says this is Ned B. He's just a loader. They don't communicate. And then Leia's like, this is low. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Tala says they can't communicate. And then she's like, well, what if he has something to say? And then Tala says actions speak louder than words.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like they were setting up like an armor moment with like Ned B with the hammer behind his back.
He had the hammer behind
he's
his
about
back
to explode.
Yeah, I was like, dang, he better
himself.
mess up a stormtrooper.
Yeah. But I just like that little layer of like, yeah, he doesn't communicate, but he's just as sentient as any other droid.
Yeah, I also love his restraint. Like it's great. Like he's like, oh, like I'm not gonna do like it's super smart because a lot of even the sentient droids, there are some that we've seen that would have just like hit him. K2SO would have just hit him. Would not have cared. K2SO would have been like, let me hit him, please. And that, but like, I don't know. He's just like chilling. He's like, I know
And
this
there's
will.
a fresh one if you open your mouth again.
he's like, I know this will cause a disturbance if I actually hit them, so I'm not going to unless I have to. I don't know. He was such a cool droid. I love him. I love him a lot, and his design was just awesome, like you said. So,
And then he doesn't get a full on hero moment, but he does help Obi-Wan at the end. Okay, with that in mind,
Vader time, Vader time. I honestly did not think that Vader was gonna show up on this planet. I was like, okay, we're gonna get Reva chasing down Obi-Wan again, and then this is gonna be like whoever gets Obi-Wan or something is gonna report to Vader, and they're gonna get like the big status. And then Vader just like comes out, and I'm like, oh crap! Like, and he just mercilessly kills like 3 people.
yeah.
He's not even like, hey, Kenobi, come to me or I'm killing these people. Nah, he just does it.
And before even that, Kenobi senses him, and it felt exactly like Ezra in Rebels, where Ezra is like, I feel cold. He didn't say it like that, but I wanted to put a Scooby-Doo twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost. But Obi-Wan sort of pre-sensing Vader in that darkness is just so, I don't know. I first noticed it because of the connection to Rebels, and then just sort of feel it as like that is Kenobi. That's what he's doing. That's how he feels. I feel like Vader might have looked at him, and it was very like, oh, I'm gonna get everyone's attention. I need to kill these people. It's also fun to kill these people.
Oh yeah.
But like, I'm gonna make Obi-Wan feel like he needs to intervene. Their compassion is a trail, But Vader doing this, Vader is doing the dirty work rather than doing a monologue. Vader is going out and attracting Kenobi.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like, and I literally was sitting there watching this with Katie, and I literally said, oh, he's doing this because he knows that Kenobi's going to have to respond. And then Kenobi didn't respond. And I was like kinda, but not like
not very quickly,
not directly. Like he still let 3 people die first.
Yeah. Before he decided to split them up, and even that is like admitting defeat in some way by splitting away from Leia.
Yeah.
But yeah, and all he does is like he just like goes up against the building. It's like, please look at me, and then as soon as Vader looks, he just splits. He just runs.
Yeah. When it's also like, I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, Kenobi's about to look at Leia and be like, hey, so you know how you were asking about your dad? Funny story. That's him. He just killed 3 people. But no, like, also, I forgot how scary Darth Vader is. It's like, I forgot how menacing he can be, and it's like, they almost do like, it reminds me of a Michael Myers movie. It reminds me of a Friday the 13th movie. Like the hero or the protagonist running and not being able to escape the killer, even though the killer is walking at the speed of snail. It's like it's a very Michael Myers thing, and it's like used to just like scare the crap out of people. Like, Vader's not walking fast, but he is still right there everywhere Obi-Wan goes. And it also goes back to Reva being like, you can't escape him. Like, he's always right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the iconic shot from the poster.
It's I feel like if we didn't know Vader, it would still work just as easily by like showing like, oh, this is his cape from this angle, these are his boots, this is his helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Like as much as the iconography, like focusing on different parts of his armor. I don't know. You mentioned like these iconic horror movie villains. It definitely feels like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he chokes one person. He snaps another person's neck. I think the third person he just sort of drags against the sand.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, not the typical interrogation, I would say.
No.
Yeah, and then he does this sort of, it's inspired by westerns, the angle of the shot of him igniting the lightsabers. Apparently, Rey did it in Tross, and then Luke did it in Mandalorian. So it's a Skywalker sort of thing.
Interesting.
But this is new sort of language that they're using for Jedi. It's this sort of versive, this sort of behind the hip ignition of the lightsaber.
Yeah. When they're running through what I think is a mill or something, I really thought Obi-Wan was gonna like climb to the top of one of the hills and we were gonna get like a kind of nod to. I was like, that'd be way too on the nose, but how hilarious would that be if he just like on top of one of the piles of whatever and like looking down at Vader, and it's like, but no, you can't do that because at that point you now have undermined Vader's authority. Once you put Obi-Wan higher than Vader, like from a filmmaking perspective, you have to keep Vader being bigger than Obi-Wan. Like
and Vader has to win this fight.
Yes. And by win, we mean torture Obi-Wan in the same way that he was 10 years ago.
What does he become? I am what you made me. Obi-Wan doesn't even have a retort. Like Obi-Wan has none of those I have failed you or like my allegiances to the Republic of Democracy. He has nothing.
Well, it's because he believes him. Like he believes that. Like that's the problem. Anakin is not who Obi-Wan made him. Like technically, yeah. Like technically, the no arms and legs. Technically, yes. But you were evil before he did that. You know, but Obi-Wan truly believes that the whole reason that Anakin ever did anything wrong is because of him. And like, so him being like, I am what you made me, Obi-Wan's like, yeah, you're right. Like I am. He believed that even when they were on Mustafar 10 years before this. He believed that it was his fault. Like much less now.
I'm just trying to think of a way that Obi-Wan is ever going to get out of this rut. Like, how is he ever going to, talk to Anakin, much less combat him? Like, what gets him to that point?
Yeah, this seems like such a far stretch from their fight in A New Hope. Because like in A New Hope, Obi-Wan had like come to terms with Vader and was like not fazed by him whatsoever. And it's like, how do we get there?
Yeah, I think to some degree, I think he wins the last battle in the sixth episode, but I still think it's gonna still be a far cry from A New Hope. And I think in a way they're building up to that, to the point where that first lightsaber duel in A New Hope, which like compared to all the other fights people tend to rag on for not being exciting, it's going to feel like the most exciting thing ever because of the internal feelings of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, because we're never going to watch that scene the same way ever again. No one who watches the show will ever watch A New Hope the same way.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I'm sure people who grew up with the originals like have a different connection to that duel.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to discount his sacrifice.
Mm-mm.
But like when you grow up with Duel of the Fates, you tend to judge those kind of scenes based on excitement.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe we'll finally maybe the whole reason that Obi-Wan did sacrifice himself is because he felt so guilty about Anakin. And he was just like, I can't do this anymore. Maybe. Who knows? Or maybe it was honestly just like a selfless act.
It was selfless in letting go because he knew Luke had things in his hands.
It's just like if for multiple reasons, this show kind of recontextualizes A New Hope, both because of the relationship between Vader and Obi-Wan, and also because of the relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia. Like, I feel like I've just seen like clips of A New Hope between, Leia talking about Obi-Wan, and it completely puts it in a new perspective of being like, yeah, she's like met him before. He's not like, he may be like a general who worked for her father in the Clone Wars, but also he's more than that. Like, yeah. It's great. Also, just, oh man, this show is so sad. This whole last scene was so sad. And like,
we also didn't mention that in the first episode, Bail Organa says, "I would trust you with her life," and then in Rogue One he says, "I would trust her with my life."
mm-hmm.
She trusts Obi-Wan to take care of Leia, but then Leia is old enough to take care of herself.
Yeah.
And then
also,
Bail Organa explodes.
Yeah.
Unless they retcon that. No,
they won't.
It's in the Bloodline book. He's not.
Oh, they wouldn't. One thing that I could not help but think about during this entire scene that just made it so much more like sad and upsetting to watch is something that Hayden Christensen says in his Sky Talkers, roundtable interview. And they basically asked him, like, what is Vader's mindset going? Like, do you view Anakin and Darth Vader as different characters when you're playing them? Or how does it go in your mind? Because he has now played both. And he basically said, like, they're both Anakin Skywalker. One is just a scarred and deformed Anakin Skywalker who has to be trapped in this metal suit because of something that happened, and he just genuinely feels trapped inside the, like, he literally cannot live without being stuck inside a suit for the rest of his life. And just
stuck
like
in a toxic relationship with Palpatine.
Exactly. And so, like, thinking of that during this scene of like, yeah, that's the same guy, but he's not like this to be intimidating. Like, yeah, that's part of it, but he's like this because he has to be. Like, he's like this because he's trapped in that suit and he can't get out of it. And that just makes like a lot of this scene for me just like feel so much like sadder from Darth Vader's perspective. It's like, you did this to me. I literally cannot live without this disgusting suit. Like,
So, one thing that this sort of evolution of visual language in Star Wars is that they took a documentary approach to a lightsaber fight.
mm-hmm.
George Lucas has said that he wanted to make Star Wars feel like a documentary, and that the camera movements are not flashy, and it feels like the camera is observing this alien world. But it wasn't at the same time like full on like handheld guerrilla filmmaking. Not a ton. Empire Strikes Back brought that into some of the Hoth scenes. Prequels was an entirely different style, a lot more fluid. Rogue One has some. Well, yeah, J.J. Abrams does a lot of camera movements. Rogue One has some of that, especially to make it feel like a war movie. Last Jedi has some of the great scenes. Feel like what I'm getting at is that normally there's a divide between making something feel like you're observing something, where it's mostly like, starships landing, stuff like that. It feels like, oh yeah, you're just like on a rooftop filming this. Or like hectic like war scenes, but lightsaber fights normally I still have that classical samurai feel. The camera is focused on moving actors, and then there is the throne room scene in Last Jedi where the camera does move, and it's a long shot basically following all this movement. But we've never had like this sort of like, it's not rapid cuts, but it is just cutting back and forth between shaky footage of Obi-Wan and Vader. And it just sort of feels like it really, like with the lighting, everything, it's just completely dark except for the lightsabers. I just feel very much like into the fear of Obi-Wan and the power of Vader. Because Vader always looks black and then like has some of the red light reflecting off him. But Obi-Wan is his normal self, but blue. And so all those like techniques, I just feel like worked so well together to make it look like we're in Obi-Wan's head. Like this is just, it's not a two-sided fight.
Yeah. You know. And then we ended the episode with Leia being taken by Reva, which is very sad.
Still more to say. I just wanted to pause for you to say something.
I know. I don't know. There's so much. We could literally talk about this fight for like an hour.
The burning scene. It's a direct mirror of the Mustafar scene from Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. It's literally the opposite angles.
Yeah.
And the sound of Obi-Wan yelling sounds exactly like Anakin yelling.
Yeah.
It is like this perfect reflection because Vader is giving Kenobi what Kenobi gave him.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of what made it hard for me to process was it's like surely Kenobi's getting face burns, but we never see him with face burns. But it doesn't look like he did. It looks like he got burned on his torso and his arms, and I was like,
yeah. Katie was like, why is his beard not catching fire?
We never see shirtless Alec Guinness, so there's a lot of scars there. Which even that brings this newer interpretation of New Hope. The idea of like underneath this old man robe,
he is burned.
Scar.
Yeah.
You know? That he physically carries this fight with Obi-Wan with him just as much as Anakin does. Not as much, but a little bit.
Yeah.
And then going back to this like the documentary visual style, all those shots of observing Vader looking in through the fire, it felt like
he's getting
for the first time it felt like a fly on the wall sort of looking at Vader. Like it wasn't fully in Vader's head.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit abstracted. It's far away, it's restrained, and it's from the back, or it's across from the fire. You know, it just feels like we're not yet getting into Anakin, you know?
Yeah.
But either way, it feels so intimidating because we're just observing this angry, dark figure.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what other time have we seen Vader in flames?
Well, Mustafar.
No, in the suit.
Oh, in the suit? I see it in my... Oh, when he's dying. When he's dead.
When he's dead and on Endor.
Yeah.
Except that...
He's actually burning.
He was sideways. Now he's like this.
Yeah. It's also in this episode that for the first time, I really go, wow, Darth Vader really did just build his castle on the planet that he was born. Like for real, like, born for real. Like no, I kind of was like, yeah, Vader's castle's on Mustafar, but it was like, no, Darth Vader was truly born on Mustafar, and that's where he decided to put his castle. That's not where the Inquisitor's place is.
Yeah, I think Palpatine made him do it. If I
that seems like a
correctly.
Palpatine thing.
But yeah,
this show also makes Darth Vader not just seem like a pawn of Palpatine as much, which makes it even more believable as to why he, like, not that it wasn't believable in the first place, but it really shows to why he would betray the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back, or not Empire Strikes, in Return of the Jedi. Because it's like, man, if he was at one point like leading this whole like group of Inquisitors, like he was in charge of hunting the Jedi, and then now he's by the end of the OT, he's just kind of like Palpatine's henchman, and Palpatine plans on getting rid of him after all this stuff that Vader did. Like, yeah, I would betray you too. Like, dang. So,
I think
although
he still is. There still is some of that.
he
I think it's just,
yeah,
he's strong on his own, that he does get that away time, that he is, at the end of the day, he is a leader of a lot of other people.
mm-hmm.
Maybe I mean, I think as they introduce Anakin's perspective, which I think we'll see at least by next week, maybe episode 5, cut away to a FaceTime with Sidious. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
I wouldn't either. Considering Ian McDiarmid did show his face at Star Wars Celebration during the Kenobi thing, like during a Kenobi, like either trailer thing or something or whatever, Ian McDiarmid did show up. So I wouldn't doubt.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I saw a clip of Ian McDiarmid at Celebration. I don't know if it may not have been that, but it was something. He was there.
He had a panel, but that doesn't mean he
He had
was
a
there. That
panel.
doesn't mean it was Kenobi.
Okay, never mind. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I'm trying to cut myself short so I don't just like talk for an hour on the same thing over and over again. So looking forward, do you think that we'll see more like Jedi or rebels to try to like convince Obi-Wan to fight? Or do you think that Tala is all it took?
I don't think you need none of the sort of forces at play are necessary. I think he got this. It's all about the relationships, and I think at this point the action is ramping up. It's all about Leia, and I think any of that. Well, he's still with Tala.
Yes.
So like Tala's gonna help him get back to Leia. And I'm crossing my fingers for a Star Destroyer infiltration sequence.
Oh, absolutely.
I want that classic serial adventure sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
of him. It'd be great if he comes across Cody. I don't know, just like Reva takes Leia, but on the way she has to stop at a Star Destroyer because that's where the fuel is or whatever, and like Kenobi somehow tracks that, and then he has to put on some stormtrooper armor. I dig that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was so itchy that he didn't bother to do that on the Death Star.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see the Obi-Wan in stormtrooper armor just infiltrating, because I can't remember in the season, is it season 7 or it's probably before, did we get him on Mandalore wearing Mandalorian armor? He infiltrated the prison to break out Satine, and he's wearing the Mandalorian armor. So he's done it before, but we have to see him do it with the Empire now. That would be pretty epic. He's got to come full circle with all the other great Star Wars heroes who have donned the stormtrooper armor.
Yeah. And this is all made more complicated by the fact that Cody is in the Bad Batch Season 2 trailer. So maybe that's the area he's going to be explored. Maybe he's going to stay in animation. Maybe we're not.
I still haven't seen the Bad Batch Season 2 trailer, so I did not know that. That's crazy.
So, yeah, we will talk about that later. So there's a lot of evidence that he won't show up in this show, but it would still be cool.
I think the fact that Tamara Morrison shows up as a different clone is basically telling us that Cody's not going to show up. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a thing where it's like, if Cody was going to show up, they wouldn't show us a 501st clone. It doesn't feel like they would. It doesn't feel like they would show 2 different clones. I don't know. That's just my person. I don't know. This feels that way.
I don't know. I still think of that set photo of Tem wearing an Imperial hat.
Oh, that's right.
It was merchandise or a crew hat, but it was still an Imperial hat.
That's true. Yeah, I kind of hope. I think it'll be cool. It would be awesome. But
I also want a dogfight, a space battle.
yeah, between who though? Because Obi-Wan's not a fighter. He's not a pilot.
Well, he can get a ship somewhere. I want him to fly an A-wing.
Do A-wings exist yet?
He stops by the Rebel Alliance just very briefly and retrieves an A-wing. He and Tala both get an A-wings, or I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe they
and
get
he
in a
goes-
two-seater Y-wing.
And he goes, "Sup, Mon Mothma? How's it going, big hoss?" She's like, "Take this A-wing," and he's like, "I." And then
I'm
she
going
looks,
after Vader now.
and then she looks at
Like,
Leia.
don't you want to see Vader be a pilot?
Oh yeah, no, I do. But like, Obi-Wan's not really a pilot. Or
No, but
like,
that's the fun of it.
yeah. And then Mon Mothma looks at Leia and goes, "You want to join?" And she's like, "Yeah." And that's how she joined the rebellion. That's what the whole show's about.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then my mom was like, "Okay, gotta go. Got a date with Cassian."
Yeah. And then we get the trailer for Andor season 1, but in the show form.
Yeah,
Like
what if they did a
this?
trailer for a show in between episodes 5 and 6?
Like an actual trailer or like
Like Book of Boba Fett played in the end credits of the finale of season 2 of Mando. What if they did that after episode 5 of Kenobi?
that'd be so weird. All right. So we have to
Because
so we have to do what also I'm really sad that we're already like I'm really upset that we're already halfway done with the series. We're already
I'm glad we're back at the weekly, so they didn't like having to record over the weekend or really after the weekend and then immediately have a new episode. Wednesdays just work better. So.
I agree. I just don't like that we're already halfway done because I want more. But anyway, I think we have to predict how's the next episode starting out. Since you did so well last episode, I think you have to do the honors again, and we'll see how right you are again.
I'm gonna predict Obi-Wan waking up, and it might be a POV shot, just something sort of like him coming into consciousness and like being really confused and scared and wanting to protect Leia and yeah. I didn't mention this, but there's a lot of POV shots in this episode as well.
Yeah.
With him looking around for Vader. And it's we forgot. Did we say it? No, yeah, we did. We did talk about when you saw Anakin in the field.
Yeah.
That's a POV shot technically. Just I'm mentally logging every time Star Wars does this. It happens a lot in animation.
Yeah.
But in live action, it's very sparse. Most of the time when live action does it, it's like binocular POV shots. But like in story, sort of as part of action, and
POV
like
lightsaber
not
duels.
literally seeing graphics of a binocular sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's always unique when it happens. So
yeah, I think we'll probably start off the next episode with either exactly what you said or Leia and Reva on a transport together, and she's just like going off on them,
like in the Inquisitor ship.
Yes.
Oh, maybe it's like Leia's perspective of the Inquisitors arguing,
and
like she pitches in.
And she's like, maybe you're all just doing this because, and then just like goes off on them, and they all just stare at her like
Fifth Brother says something really dumb, and then she's like, "You sound like my cousin."
Oh, roasted. That would be sick. Yeah. No, I think that's gonna start with Leia and the Inquisitors probably. But I don't really care how it starts. I just want to watch it.
Actually, based on the ending of this episode, it's very likely that it's Leia because it ends with Leia in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Last time, right? Like the first episode, Kenobi gets on the transport. Next episode, the transport arrives at Daiyu. That episode ends with them on the new transport escaping Daiyu. Then this episode begins with them on the transport going to Mapuzo. This episode ends with Leia and Reva. Probably gonna start with Leia.
Probably.
It lends itself to that movie structure where it's like everything's cause and effect, and it's sort of split up where the emotional things sort of happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the same sort of anything can happen. Anything can begin anywhere. Like
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. And like even the people who are part of this are like, yeah, we basically just filmed this like a movie and then just cut it where it made sense to cut it, kind of thing.
It was written as a show, but it started with that.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I think that I'm ready for this next episode to come out because I need more. It's so good. This show is so much better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think I would get to say that about a Star Wars show for a while. I'm so glad that we're back at it where we're just hyped to watch Star Wars again. Because it's been a fat minute since other than like Resistance, it's been a minute since we've been like really excited to just watch Star Wars. And I'm so glad to be back in it. And it reminds me about why we do the podcast. And I'm happy about it.
In a way, this is the actual Star Wars podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we loved Mandalorian when it came out, but that was like part of it was around that TROS era where we didn't. I don't know. We were babies then.
We're still kind of babies.
Now it feels like after being disappointed and after evaluating our attitudes, we definitely have a better understanding for the why. Why we want to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. Was there anything else to say before we wrap up this episode? This has been a fun discussion.
That's a weird story.
It was a weird story. If you want to find us on any of our social medias, you can find us on Instagram or Twitter at Last Star Wars Pod or Last Star Wars Podcast on Facebook and YouTube, where we post all the videos of this podcast. If you want to email us something, email us what your favorite part about the show is so far, what you think is going to happen next, or just say hi. You can email us at laststarwarspod@gmail.com. I know I haven't plugged it in a while, but you guys should go check out StarWarsNowThis.com. It's in the description of all the episodes, and it's just the best place to find any Star Wars podcast you can think of. It's a great website. Go check it out. Thank us again for listening to this episode of the Last Star Wars Podcast, and we Kenobi. And I hope that we will see you next time.